Welcome back, Jeff Coughlin, Scale Modelling Now. And as you can see, we're moving on with construction. And I'm just removing some of the parts that are going to need to have some of the interior green, the matte 78, sprayed on the surfaces. So we've got the kind of armoured headrest here, which we're going to spray 78. And then there's a bulkhead, sort of an engine, sort of firewall bulkhead thing here that sits just behind the engine in here. And then there's this small panel here, just to the either side, that includes the doors that are also 78. So we'll just clean those parts up now. And I'm just using one of these new Humbrol files, which comes in their mini and medium tool sets, which is good for the job. Okay, that's good. So he's pretty much ready to go. And I find it quite useful to use these bulldog clips. You can get them anywhere, really, any sort of stationary type shop, and then mount the parts in those, which are great for handling and then spraying. So those two are now ready, and then we've got the main fuselage sides here. I think at this point I'll probably just remove those from the sprues using these Humbrol side cutters, which are good here. So the trick with these is to come in reasonably close to the part, but not so close that you might damage the part. And in fact, the fact that there's a slight, whether you can see that, there's a very slight angle to the side cutters so that they're not completely square on one side. That means that in fact you're going to get a little bit of protection from the part anyway, or to the part, by coming in as close as the cutters will allow. It's nice to see these cutters working well. They cut nice and clean, which means that they're sharp. And I think again the trick with these things is to try and avoid using them for anything that's going to any purpose that's likely to damage them, which is easy. As modelers, we quite often reach for something that's to hand but isn't necessarily ideal for the job. That's because I mean they're not. I'm not quite sure. I imagine these are steel actually, because they're not so expensive. But if you get some of so the point is if you start to cut things like steel pins, which you might use for pitot heads, or you start to cut really strong material as well, like light metal, then there's a very good chance you're going to pit the cutting edge, which is not good. So my view is just use one of these for its purpose, and it will last you for ages. And then again, using one of the new Humbrol scalpels, it's got a number 11 blade in. I just use this in this fashion because I find it completely controls the scalpel stroke modelling knife. You know, you're not going to kind of cut into your thumb here if you just go nice and steadily. You can just gently running it across the surface. You just feel whether there's any raised plastic there. And for me, I just quite like to use this to start with, and then I can always use the file to tidy up afterwards. It's important to use this blade, I think, in a similar kind of way to this, because you're able to control it and it doesn't dig into the plastic surface. Because you can imagine here with this very nice fine fabric effect, which FX have created on the side of the Hurricane, it would be a shame to kind of damage that along the top edge with a bit of careless use of the scalpel. Okay, it's coming on nicely. Okay, so there we go. You get the idea. So I'll just do the other fuselage half, and then we'll get on to painting, and then you can see how I spray that Humbrol 78 Humbrol acrylic using their own thinners, and that will come next. Well, we've made a start on the painting now of the interior, and what I've done is just given a quick squirt of Humbrol Grey primer just on the internal surfaces and those surfaces that we're going to be spraying. It's really essential in my experience that if you're going to spray or paint Humbrol acrylic, in this case Matte 78, you definitely need to lay down a primer first. The paint just doesn't like spraying straight onto plastic. It tends to sort of congeal a little bit and get into little sort of globules, and that's not uncommon with some paints. So the whole idea is that you prep the surface with a primer, and then the paint will adhere and kind of grip right onto that primer once it's dry. So all that was required there was just a quick squirt, as I say, of the grey, and then, to be honest, I use a hairdryer. I just give it a quick go over with a hairdryer, and within 5 minutes, we're good to go with the colour on top of that. And that's the stage we're at just now. So nice and sort of straightforward prep. So what we need to do is mix up the paint, and I have already given the tub a good stir, so it's already stirred, but just literally 60 seconds worth of a really, really good stir will be fine. A little paint cup here, little mixing cup. Let's just get some of that paint. There we go, here. Just pop that on the inside. I try not to use too much. I know I've only got a small amount to spray here, so it's not going to require a huge amount of paint. And of course we're going to thin that, and I'm looking for about a 50-50 mix. Pipette's always useful. You could just drop couple of drops into there, well, about similar sort of amount really. It's all a bit of guesswork, but it's about that, and then all we do here is come in and mix it up. I use the same stirrer because of course you've already got paint on the stirrer, and that just helps to get the consistency I'm looking for. And as you may have seen in one of those earlier videos, looking for consistency of about milk, sort of semi-skim milk, would you believe? There we go, something like that, and that's looking good. And when I say looking good, it just means that when you're stirring it, catches the light, you can just look and just see, yeah, it's just clinging to the sides of the pot, and for me that's about good to go. So we just get rid of the excess, don't want to waste too much of that. Put our stirrer out of the way, and for my airbrush, I'm just using a pretty basic standard airbrush here. This is a cheap entry level one which I've had for ages, which you may have seen already in the earlier video, and all we need to do now is just pour that into the cup. I've got the compressor set for about 17 psi, 18 psi, something like that, and then I think we're kind of good to go. All right, so all we need to do then is just keep the airbrush on the move. That's important as we spray. Normally I do this in my booth. I'm not doing it in the booth so I can show you, otherwise it's just a nightmare to try and get everything configured up appropriately. But in fact, it's really just this central area here, this part round where the door is, that would need to be this interior grey-green. Here we go, don't need to go too mad. It's gone on really smoothly, nice even coat, which is exactly what we are looking for. Just do that again. You can see the primer is just essential really. The paint just adheres very nicely to that, and it's kind of job done very quickly. Hop onto the armoured headrest. I think that's green if I can recall. Yeah, it is, I'm pretty sure it is. There we go, you can see that, nice and smooth. Do like this stuff, I like this paint, but I think the mistake sometimes guys make, and I've got to be honest, I did the same when I first started to use it, was I didn't realise just how essential primer is, and it is essential. Put that on, problem solved in my book. Lovely, look at that, beautifully smooth. Nothing to get worried about at all. So that's great, so there we are, that's the main interior green bits done. and I'm just going to go and clean up the airbrush. Just needs to be done mostly in water, and then I use a little bit of airbrush cleaner to clear it out, clear the remaining bits out. So we'll come back and then we can start to press on with the rest of the interior. I think there's a little bit of silver to be done around here, so we'll do that next. So as you can see, the green has dried. I've just put a bit of heat on that from the hairdryer just to kind of speed up the process. So that's all dried nice and smoothly. So what we need to do now is just mask out that little green area for the door and so on the inside, and then we'll spray this other remaining section silver. And for that, I've just cut some masking tape, as you can see here. And all we're going to do now is just apply that in the areas that we need to keep green. See the advantage there of just cutting some of those little pieces of masking tape in different shapes. It just speeds up the whole process, really. Just notice there's a little section there that needs to be kept green. I mean, to be perfectly honest, you don't need to kind of be completely obsessive about this, because you're not going to see a whole amount, to be honest. Should do it. So nice and quick, that's all we need to do, just protect that little area there, which we've done. So I'll just do the other side and then we'll come back with the 56, I think it is. That's right. So we'll use that silver, Humbrol Silver 56 to just spray those silver areas. We'll come back and do that in just a second. Getting ready here with the 56, and I'm just giving it a really good stir. With the metallics, you really need to give them a very good thorough stirring, because the metallic pigment settles to the bottom and you really want to make sure that's all mixed up before you get spraying. This 56 is actually quite a dark silver. It's definitely not like a light aluminium or anything. It's definitely quite dark. So you just need to bear that in mind. If you want it lighter, then you could always pick a different colour, different shade, or you could dry brush it, highlight it with silver, and that's actually what we'll do when we come back, because we need to just do a little bit of dry brushing on all that metallic framing. Remember, we had that on the inside cockpit, we want to highlight some of that, so I'm going to do a little bit of dry brushing there, so we'll get to that in a second. So exactly the same with this as we did with the 78 matte. Get it to a decent sort of stage where it looks like it's mixed, and then we'll go for a bit of a 50-50 mix there. Okay, so I think that's probably about right. And a little mixing cup again. You could prep a bunch of the other parts that are also 56 if you wanted, things like the undercarriage legs, wheel bays, that kind of thing. But I don't know, for me, that's almost kind of too much prep, really. I quite like to see a bit of progress and make progress and kind of move on as we go. And the good thing about using acrylics, of course, is that they do dry much quicker than enamels and some of the other types of paints, so lacquers and the like. So you can really get on and make swift progress anyway, so it doesn't really matter. We haven't got to wait huge amounts of drying time and so on. So just sort of 3 or 4 drops of Humbrol thinner in there, and we'll get in and mix that up just like we did before with the 78. and that's getting there. Okay, that should just about do us, I think, really. Looks to be about the right kind of consistency. Stick airbrush again. In it goes. No change to the pressure setting, still about 17. Don't see any need to change that at all. Quick test. Yeah, we've got some flow there, and all we need to do then is just gently lay that down. On those areas inside. And that is about it, really. Don't go too mad. I'll cover it. Same on the other side. You can see that metallic kind of glinting away there. Okay, there we are. And that's kind of that, really. So no need to do any more for the moment. I'm quite pleased because I think that's pretty much taken care of most of the interior kind of painting. So what we could do is start to assemble the model now, which would be great because that's always a good sign of progress, isn't it? Okay, back soon and we'll make some more progress.